Michael Jordan was more than just a basketball player. Even in the early days of his career, when he wasn't yet the global icon everyone knows today, people could sense there was something special about him. His talent on the court was undeniable, but it wasn't just his skills that set him apart. It was his personality, his confidence, and the way he carried himself. One day, after an intense practice session with his teammates, Michael decided to celebrate their hard work. They were tired, sweaty, and hungry, so they headed to a popular restaurant in town known for its delicious food and celebrity clientele. The group walked into the restaurant casually dressed. Michael wore a simple hoodie and jeans, looking like any other guy enjoying a night out with friends. None of them expected anything unusual to happen. After all, they were just regular customers looking for a good meal. As they approached the host stand, the staff greeted them politely, scanning the group with quick glances. But when it came time to seat them, something strange occurred. The host hesitated, glancing at Michael up and down. Then, without much explanation, he said, "I'm sorry, but we don't have any available tables right now." The words hung in the air awkwardly. Michael blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. His teammates exchanged confused looks. There were plenty of empty tables visible from where they stood, and other groups who arrived later were being seated almost immediately. It didn't take long for Michael to realize what was happening. This wasn't about availability. It was about how they looked. At first, Michael felt a surge of anger bubbling inside him. He wanted to argue, to demand answers, or even call out the unfairness of the situation. But instead, he took a deep breath and chose not to make a scene. Quietly, he turned around and left the restaurant with his friends. Outside, as they stood under the dim streetlights, one of his teammates muttered, "Can you believe that? Who do they think they are?" Another chimed in, "They probably didn't even recognize you, Mike. If they knew who you were, this wouldn't have happened." But Michael stayed silent. Inside, he was wrestling with a mix of emotions: anger, frustration, embarrassment, and disbelief. This wasn't the first time someone had judged him based on appearances. Growing up, he'd faced similar situations where people underestimated him because of how he looked or where he came from. But this instance felt different. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was about fairness, respect, and the kind of world he wanted to live in. That night, as Michael lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The memory replayed over and over in his mind. The hesitation in the host's voice, the dismissive tone, the subtle judgment disguised as politeness. He wondered how many others had been treated the same way simply because they didn't fit someone's idea of acceptable. For Michael, this wasn't just a personal insult. It was a reflection of a deeper issue, one that needed addressing. As he tossed and turned, an idea began to form in his head. What if he could use this experience to send a message? Not a message of revenge or bitterness, but one of empowerment and change. He thought about returning to the restaurant, not to cause trouble, but to show them and the world that true greatness isn't determined by clothes or assumptions. True greatness comes from within, and no amount of bias or prejudice can diminish it. By the next morning, Michael had made up his mind. He called a few trusted friends and shared his plan. At first, they assumed he wanted to confront the restaurant, staff, or file a complaint. But Michael surprised them. "We're going back," he said firmly. When they asked why, he explained his vision: to return to the same restaurant with a powerful statement, proving that respect should never be conditional. His friends were intrigued but cautious. One of them suggested dressing differently the second time around, perhaps wearing suits and ties to test whether the staff's attitude would change. But Michael shook his head. "If I have to dress differently to get treated fairly, then the problem isn't solved," he said. Instead, he proposed bringing along influential figures from various fields, business leaders, artists, and fellow athletes, to join him for dinner. Their presence alone would speak volumes without needing to say a word. Over the following days, Michael worked tirelessly to bring his plan to life. He reached out to friends and acquaintances, explaining his intentions and inviting them to participate. To his delight, many eagerly agreed, touched by his determination to turn a negative experience into something meaningful. Together, they formed a diverse group of individuals, each representing excellence in their respective domains. They weren't just guests at a dinner, they were symbols of unity, strength, and resilience. Finally, the day arrived. Michael and his entourage stepped into the restaurant once again. This time, however, the energy was palpable. Walking alongside him were recognizable faces from across industries, radiating confidence and charisma. The host, clearly caught off guard, stumbled over his words as he tried to welcome them. And then, to everyone's astonishment, the very same table that had been unavailable during their previous visit was suddenly free and waiting for them. Throughout the meal, whispers filled the air as diners craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the legendary athlete and his high-profile companions. Waitstaff hovered attentively, ensuring every need was met promptly. The stark contrast between this experience and the last was impossible to ignore. Yet, Michael remained calm and composed, engaging warmly with those around him while subtly observing the shift in behavior. After dessert, Michael stood up and addressed the room briefly. With humility, he thanked the restaurant for hosting such a memorable evening. Then, turning serious, he added, "Respect shouldn't depend on who you know or how you look. Everyone deserves fair treatment." His words resonated deeply, leaving many attendees reflecting on their own biases and assumptions. News of the event spread quickly, thanks in part to social media posts from guests who witnessed the transformation firsthand. Journalists picked up the story, highlighting not only the initial refusal but also Michael's classy response. Headlines praised him for turning a negative experience into a teachable moment, sparking conversations about discrimination and equality in everyday settings. What truly shocked everyone, though, was Michael's next move. Rather than letting the issue fade away, he partnered with local organizations to launch initiatives aimed at combating prejudice and promoting inclusivity. He funded workshops for businesses on unconscious bias training and encouraged restaurants to adopt policies, ensuring equal treatment for all customers. His efforts weren't limited to financial support either. He actively participated in community events, using his platform to amplify marginalized voices. People marveled at how gracefully Michael handled the entire ordeal. Where others might have sought retaliation or publicity, he chose education and empowerment. Critics were silenced and supporters grew exponentially. Michael proved that success isn't measured solely by accolades on the court, but by the positive impact one can make off it. Years later, the story of Michael Jordan's encounter at the restaurant became legendary. It served as a reminder that challenges can be opportunities in disguise, if approached with wisdom and purpose. Michael often reflected on that pivotal moment, acknowledging how it shaped his perspective on leadership and advocacy. He continued to champion causes close to his heart, inspiring generations to challenge societal norms and strive for fairness. The restaurant itself underwent significant changes, implementing new standards inspired by Michael's initiative. Today, it proudly displays a plaque commemorating the night Michael turned adversity into action. In the end, Michael Jordan's legacy extended far beyond basketball. Through his courage and determination, he taught the world that greatness lies not in avoiding obstacles, but in confronting them head-on and transforming them into stepping stones toward progress. The next morning, Michael woke up with a clear sense of purpose. The incident at the restaurant had left a lasting impression on him, but instead of letting it fester into bitterness, he decided to channel his energy into something meaningful. He knew that this wasn't just about him. It was about addressing a much bigger issue: the unfair treatment people face based on appearances, assumptions, or biases. For Michael, it was time to turn a negative experience into an opportunity to make a statement. He started by calling a few close friends and confidants, people who understood his vision and shared his values. Among them were teammates, mentors, and even some business associates who admired his leadership both on and off the court. When they gathered for a quick meeting later that day, Michael laid out his plan. At first, his friends thought he wanted to confront the restaurant staff directly, or maybe file a formal complaint. After all, being refused service because of how you're dressed or perceived is humiliating enough to warrant action. But Michael surprised them all. "This isn't about revenge," he said firmly. "It's about proving a point. We're going back to that restaurant, not to cause trouble, but to show them what respect really looks like." His words hung in the air as everyone processed what he meant. One of his teammates raised an eyebrow. "So, we're just gonna walk in there again? What's gonna stop them from doing the same thing?" Another chimed in. "Maybe we should dress differently this time, suit and tie, so they can't say no." Michael shook his head. "If I have to change how I look to get treated fairly, then nothing changes," he explained. "This isn't about me dressing up. It's about showing that respect should be given regardless of how someone is dressed or where they come from." His conviction was unwavering, and his friends couldn't help but admire his perspective. They realized that Michael wasn't just thinking about himself. He was thinking about the countless others who might face similar situations every day. To amplify the message, Michael proposed bringing along influential figures from various fields. He envisioned a group of accomplished individuals, business leaders, artists, athletes, and activists who represented excellence in their respective domains. These weren't just random guests. They symbolized diversity, talent, and success. Their presence alone would send a powerful message without needing to utter a single word. It was a bold move, one that required careful planning and coordination. Over the next few days, Michael reached out to several high-profile personalities. Some he knew personally, while others he contacted through mutual connections. To his delight, nearly everyone he approached agreed to join him. Many were moved by his determination to address such a sensitive topic in a constructive way. A famous artist known for her advocacy work immediately signed on, saying, "Michael, if anyone can turn this into a teachable moment, it's you." A tech entrepreneur whose company focused on inclusivity initiatives also joined, adding, "I've faced discrimination too. Let's show the world what fairness truly means." As the guest list grew, Michael worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure everything went smoothly. He coordinated with his team to finalize details, from timing to seating arrangements. He didn't want the evening to feel staged or overly dramatic. Instead, he aimed for authenticity and impact. This wasn't about creating drama. It was about making a difference. On the day of the event, excitement buzzed in the air. Michael and his entourage arrived at the restaurant, drawing immediate attention. Walking alongside him were recognizable faces from across industries, each exuding confidence and charisma. There was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, a Grammy-winning musician, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, and several other notable figures. Together they formed a diverse group united by a common goal: to challenge stereotypes and redefine respect. The host at the restaurant looked visibly flustered as he greeted them. Clearly unprepared for such a high-profile crowd, he stumbled over his words. "Well, welcome," he stammered, glancing nervously between Michael and the rest of the group. Then, almost comically, the very same table that had been unavailable during their previous visit was suddenly free and waiting for them. No explanation was offered, but the irony wasn't lost on anyone. As the group settled into their seats, whispers rippled through the dining area. Other patrons craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the legendary athlete and his distinguished companions. Waitstaff hovered attentively, ensuring every need was met promptly. Glasses were refilled before they were even halfway empty. Plates were cleared swiftly, and servers smiled warmly as they took orders. The stark contrast between this experience and the last was impossible to ignore. Throughout the meal, Michael remained calm and composed. He engaged warmly with those around him, sharing stories and laughter while subtly observing the shift in behavior. The staff's sudden eagerness to please wasn't lost on him, but he didn't let it sour the evening. Instead, he used the moment to reflect on the deeper meaning behind it all. Here was proof that perception often dictated treatment, and that needed to change. After dessert, Michael stood up and addressed the room briefly. Holding a glass of water, he thanked the restaurant for hosting such a memorable evening. Then, turning serious, he added, Respect shouldn't depend on who you know or how you look. Everyone deserves fair treatment. His voice carried authority, yet it was laced with humility. The room fell silent as diners absorbed his words. Some nodded in agreement while others exchanged thoughtful glances. It was a simple yet profound reminder of the importance of treating everyone equally, regardless of status or appearance. News of the event spread quickly. Guests posted photos and videos on social media, capturing the essence of the evening. Journalists picked up the story, highlighting not only the initial refusal but also Michael's classy response. Headlines read, "Michael Jordan turns rejection into a lesson on equality," and "How one dinner changed perceptions forever." The public was captivated by the narrative, a tale of resilience, grace, and empowerment. What shocked everyone, however, was Michael's next move. Instead of letting the issue fade away after the dinner, he partnered with local organizations to launch initiatives aimed at combating prejudice and promoting inclusivity. He funded workshops for businesses on unconscious bias training, encouraging employees to recognize and overcome their own biases. Restaurants across the city adopted new policies inspired by Michael's efforts, pledging to treat all customers with dignity and respect. Michael also became actively involved in community events, using his platform to amplify marginalized voices. He spoke at schools, attended charity fundraisers, and collaborated with grassroots movements to drive meaningful change. His actions proved that greatness isn't measured solely by achievements on the court. It's defined by the positive impact one leaves on the world. Years later, when people reflected on Michael Jordan's legacy, they remembered not only his incredible basketball career, but also his commitment to fairness and equality. The restaurant where it all began underwent significant changes, implementing standards that ensured equal treatment for all patrons. Today, it proudly displays a plaque commemorating the night Michael turned adversity into action, a testament to the power of turning challenges into opportunities. In the end, Michael taught the world an invaluable lesson. True greatness lies, not in avoiding obstacles but in confronting them head-on. By transforming a negative experience into a catalyst for change, he inspired generations to challenge societal norms and strive for a better, more inclusive future. The moment Michael Jordan and his entourage stepped into the restaurant for the second time, the atmosphere shifted. It was as if the entire room collectively held its breath. The group walked in with an aura of confidence that demanded attention, not because they were trying to make a scene, but because their very presence exuded excellence. Alongside Michael were some of the most accomplished individuals from various fields. A renowned CEO who had built a multi-billion-dollar company from scratch, a Grammy-winning musician whose songs inspired millions, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author whose words sparked movements, and other influential figures who represented diversity, talent, and resilience. The host at the restaurant looked visibly flustered. His eyes darted nervously between Michael and the rest of the group, clearly unprepared for such a high-profile arrival. Welcome," he stammered, his voice trembling slightly. Without hesitation, he gestured toward the very same table that had been mysteriously unavailable during Michael's previous visit. No explanation was offered, but the irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all Michael. He exchanged a knowing glance with one of his companions, silently acknowledging the absurdity of the situation. As the group settled into their seats, whispers rippled through the dining area. Other patrons craned their necks to catch a glimpse of the legendary athlete and his distinguished companions. Waitstaff hovered attentively, ensuring every need was met promptly. Glasses were refilled before they were even halfway empty, plates were cleared swiftly, and servers smiled warmly as they took orders. The stark contrast between this experience and Michael's last visit was impossible to ignore. While the service now felt almost excessive, it highlighted the underlying issue. Respect shouldn't be conditional, it should be automatic. Throughout the meal, Michael remained calm and composed. He engaged warmly with those around him, sharing stories and laughter while subtly observing the shift in behavior. He noticed how the staff went out of their way to accommodate them, bending over backward to ensure everything was perfect. Oh, waiter even complimented Michael on his recent game performance, though he hadn't mentioned basketball once since arriving. It was clear that their treatment now stemmed not from genuine hospitality, but from recognition of status and influence. Despite the obvious disparity, Michael didn't let it sour the evening. Instead, he used the moment to reflect on the deeper meaning behind it all. Here was proof that perception often dictated treatment, and that needed to change. People shouldn't have to earn respect based on fame, wealth, or appearance. Respect should be a baseline expectation for everyone, regardless of who they are or what they look like. This belief fueled Michael's determination to turn the evening into something more than just a dinner. It was an opportunity to challenge societal norms and redefine fairness. After dessert, Michael stood up and addressed the room briefly. Holding a glass of water, he thanked the restaurant for hosting such a memorable evening. Then, turning serious, he added, "Respect shouldn't depend on who you know or how you look. Everyone deserves fair treatment." His voice carried authority, yet it was laced with humility. The room fell silent as diners absorbed his words. Some nodded in agreement while others exchanged thoughtful glances. It was a simple yet profound reminder of the importance of treating everyone equally, regardless of status or appearance. Michael's speech resonated deeply with those in attendance. For many, it served as a wake-up call, a moment to reflect on their own biases and assumptions. One diner later recounted how Michael's words made her realize how often she judged people based on superficial factors. Another admitted feeling guilty about times when he hadn't spoken up against unfair treatment. Even the restaurant staff seemed affected, exchanging quiet murmurs among themselves as they processed the significance of the evening. News of the event spread quickly. Guests posted photos and videos on social media, capturing the essence of the evening. Journalists picked up the story, highlighting not only the initial refusal but also Michael's classy response. Headlines read, "Michael Jordan turns rejection into a lesson on equality, and how one dinner changed perceptions forever." The public was captivated by the narrative, a tale of resilience, grace, and empowerment. What shocked everyone, however, was Michael's next move. Instead of letting the issue fade away after the dinner, he partnered with local organizations to launch initiatives aimed at combating prejudice and promoting inclusivity. He funded workshops for businesses on unconscious bias training, encouraging employees to recognize and overcome their own biases. Restaurants across the city adopted new policies inspired by Michael's efforts, pledging to treat all customers with dignity and respect. One initiative involved creating a certification program for restaurants and businesses committed to inclusivity. Those who completed the training received a badge displayed prominently at their establishments, signaling their dedication to equitable treatment. Michael worked closely with experts in diversity and inclusion to develop the curriculum, ensuring it addressed real-world challenges faced by marginalized communities. He also collaborated with grassroots organizations to amplify voices often overlooked in mainstream conversations about equality. Michael didn't stop there. He became actively involved in community events, using his platform to inspire change beyond the restaurant industry. He spoke at schools, sharing his experiences with students and encouraging them to stand up against discrimination. At charity fundraisers, he emphasized the importance of empathy and understanding, urging attendees to look beyond surface-level differences. He even partnered with artists and creators to produce content that celebrated diversity and challenged stereotypes. His actions proved that greatness isn't measured solely by achievements on the court. It's defined by the positive impact one leaves on the world. Michael understood that true leadership involves more than personal success. It requires lifting others up and paving the way for a better future. By addressing systemic issues head-on, he demonstrated that anyone, regardless of their background, can drive meaningful change. Years later, when people reflected on Michael Jordan's legacy, they remembered not only his incredible basketball career but also his commitment to fairness and equality. The restaurant where it all began underwent significant changes, implementing standards that ensured equal treatment for all patrons. Today, it proudly displays a plaque commemorating the night Michael turned adversity into action, a testament to the power of turning challenges into opportunities. In the end, Michael taught the world an invaluable lesson. True greatness lies not in avoiding obstacles but in confronting them head-on. By transforming a negative experience into a catalyst for change, he inspired generations to challenge societal norms and strive for a better, more inclusive future. His story serves as a reminder that every challenge presents an opportunity to grow, learn, and make a difference. And for Michael, that difference started with a single act of courage and grew into a movement that continues to inspire today. The ripple effect of Michael Jordan's actions began almost immediately after the dinner at the restaurant. News outlets couldn't get enough of the story. A world-famous athlete had turned a personal slight into a powerful statement about fairness and equality. Journalists wrote articles dissecting every detail, from the initial refusal of service to the transformative evening that followed. Social media platforms buzzed with reactions as people shared their thoughts and feelings about what Michael had done. Some praised his grace under pressure, while others highlighted the importance of his message. The phrase "respect shouldn't depend on who you know or how you look" became a rallying cry for those advocating for change. But Michael wasn't satisfied with just making headlines. He knew that real progress required action, not just words. In the weeks following the dinner, he doubled down on his efforts to address systemic issues of bias and discrimination. Partnering with local organizations, he launched a series of initiatives aimed at promoting inclusivity and challenging societal norms. One of his first projects was funding workshops designed to educate businesses on unconscious bias. These workshops weren't just lectures. They were interactive sessions where participants explored their own assumptions and learned practical ways to create more equitable environments. Michael personally attended several of these workshops, sitting alongside employees from various industries. At one session held in a bustling downtown office building, he listened intently as facilitators guided attendees through exercises meant to uncover hidden prejudices. When it was his turn to speak, Michael stood up and addressed the room. "We all have biases," he said. "It's part of being human, but we also have the power to recognize them and do better. That's what this is about, doing better." His honesty struck a chord with everyone present, breaking down barriers and fostering open dialogue. Word of Michael's involvement spread quickly, inspiring other companies to join the movement. Restaurants across the city began adopting new policies inspired by his example. Servers received training on treating all customers with dignity, regardless of appearance or perceived status. Managers implemented systems to ensure fair treatment, such as rotating seating assignments randomly, rather than based on judgment calls. Some establishments even went a step further, displaying signs pledging their commitment to inclusivity. It was clear that Michael's influence was reshaping entire industries. Beyond restaurants, Michael extended his reach to schools and community centers. He believed that education was key to creating lasting change, so he worked closely with educators to develop programs focused on empathy and understanding. In classrooms, students participated in activities designed to help them appreciate diversity and challenge stereotypes. Teachers reported seeing noticeable shifts in behavior, with kids becoming more mindful of how they treated one another. One teacher shared a touching story about a student who approached her after a lesson on inclusion. "I never thought about it before," the child said, "but now I see why it matters." Michael also became a regular presence at charity events and fundraisers, using his platform to amplify marginalized voices. At a gala supporting underprivileged youth, he delivered a speech that brought the audience to its feet. "We talk a lot about success," he said, "but true success isn't just about winning games or earning trophies. It's about lifting others up and making sure everyone gets a fair shot. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave behind." His words resonated deeply, inspiring donors to contribute generously to the cause. Perhaps most impactful was Michael's collaboration with artists and creators. Together, they produced content that celebrated diversity and challenged societal norms. A short film titled Fair Play debuted at a major film festival, telling the story of a young boy who faces discrimination but ultimately finds strength in his community. The film featured cameos from Michael himself, along with other prominent figures who supported the message. Critics hailed it as a groundbreaking piece of storytelling, praising its ability to blend entertainment with activism. As time went on, Michael's efforts gained momentum. Grassroots movements sprang up in cities around the country inspired by his example. People organized rallies, hosted panel discussions, and created online forums dedicated to advancing equality. Businesses large and small signed pledges committing to inclusive practices, knowing that consumers increasingly valued companies that prioritized fairness. Even lawmakers took notice, introducing legislation aimed at addressing systemic discrimination in public spaces. Despite the widespread acclaim, Michael remained humble throughout it all. He never sought recognition for his work. Instead, he let his actions speak for themselves. Friends and colleagues often remarked on his unwavering dedication, noting how he poured countless hours into planning and executing initiatives without expecting anything in return. "This isn't about me," he would say whenever someone praised him. "It's about creating a world where everyone feels valued." One particularly memorable moment occurred during a community event held in a low-income neighborhood. Michael spent the day interacting with residents, listening to their stories and learning about the challenges they faced daily. As he spoke with a young girl who dreamed of becoming a doctor despite financial hardships, tears welled up in his eyes. "You remind me of myself when I was your age," he told her. "Never stop believing in yourself no matter what anyone says." The girl beamed, clutching a basketball he had signed earlier, and promised she wouldn't give up. By the end of the year, Michael's impact was undeniable. Surveys showed a significant increase in awareness about bias and discrimination, thanks in part to his campaigns. Restaurants reported improved customer satisfaction ratings, crediting changes in staff training and policy implementation. Schools noted reduced instances of bullying, attributing the shift to curriculum updates focused on empathy. And communities grew stronger as people came together to support one another. Yet for Michael, the journey was far from over. He understood that change takes time and persistence. While strides had been made, there was still much work to be done. He continued to push forward, expanding his initiatives and exploring new avenues for advocacy. Whether speaking at conferences, mentoring young leaders, or simply engaging in conversations with strangers, he remained steadfast in his mission to inspire fairness and equality. Looking back, Michael reflected on how far he'd come since that fateful night at the restaurant. What started as a personal experience of rejection had blossomed into a global movement for change. He realized that adversity, when handled with purpose, could become a catalyst for growth, not just for oneself, but for society as a whole. Through his courage and determination, he proved that greatness isn't defined by accolades or achievements alone. It's measured by the positive impact one leaves on the world. In the years to come, Michael's story would serve as a reminder that challenges are opportunities in disguise. By confronting obstacles head-on and transforming them into stepping stones toward progress, he inspired generations to strive for a better, more inclusive future. And though his name will forever be associated with basketball, his true legacy lies in the lives he touched and the change he ignited, one act of courage at a time. Years passed, but the story of Michael Jordan's response to being refused service at a restaurant remained etched in people's minds. It wasn't just because it involved one of the greatest athletes of all time. It was because of what he did next. What could have been dismissed as a minor incident turned into a defining moment that reshaped perspectives and inspired countless individuals to challenge societal norms. For Michael, this journey became more than just an act of personal vindication. It evolved into a lifelong commitment to fairness, equality, and empowerment. The restaurant where everything began underwent significant changes over the years. Once known for its inconsistent treatment of customers, it transformed itself into a model establishment for inclusivity and respect. Inspired by Michael's initiatives, the owners implemented rigorous training programs for their staff, focusing on unconscious bias and equitable service. Signs were placed prominently around the restaurant, pledging fair treatment for every guest regardless of appearance or background. Today, visitors can see a plaque near the entrance commemorating the night Michael returned with his entourage, a reminder of how adversity can lead to meaningful change. But the impact didn't stop there. The ripple effects of Michael's actions spread far beyond that single restaurant. Across industries, businesses adopted similar practices, ensuring that no customer would ever feel unwelcome due to superficial judgments. Some companies even created Michael Jordan Awards, recognizing employees who went above and beyond to promote inclusivity in their workplaces. These awards served not only as tokens of appreciation, but also as motivators for others to follow suit. In schools, Michael's influence continued to inspire young minds. Educators incorporated lessons about empathy, fairness, and standing up against discrimination into their curricula, using his story as a real-life example of turning challenges into opportunities. Students learned that greatness isn't just about achieving success, it's about making a difference in the lives of others. Many classrooms displayed posters featuring Michael's famous quote, "Respect shouldn't depend on who you know or how you look." Teachers often shared anecdotes from his life, showing students that leadership means using your platform to lift others up. Communities also benefited immensely from Michael's efforts. Grassroots movements inspired by his work gained traction worldwide, uniting people from diverse backgrounds under the banner of equality. Neighborhoods once divided by prejudice found common ground through dialogues sparked by his initiatives. Community centers hosted workshops and events focused on fostering understanding and breaking down barriers. A particularly impactful program, called Courts for Change, brought together children from different walks of life to play basketball, while learning valuable lessons about teamwork, respect, and inclusion. The courts themselves became symbols of unity, painted with messages promoting fairness and acceptance. For Michael personally, the experience deepened his sense of purpose. While he had always been driven both on and off the court, this chapter in his life reinforced his belief that true greatness lies in serving others. He continued to champion causes close to his heart, traveling across the globe to speak at conferences, mentor young leaders, and collaborate with organizations working towards social justice. His speeches often emphasized the importance of perseverance and resilience, reminding audiences that setbacks are inevitable, but they don't define us unless we let them. One of Michael's proudest achievements was the establishment of the Equal Play Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to combating discrimination in public spaces. Through partnerships with businesses, schools, and governments, the foundation worked tirelessly to create environments where everyone felt valued and respected. Its flagship project, Fair Tables, encouraged restaurants and cafes to adopt policies ensuring equal treatment for all patrons. Participating establishments displayed badges certifying their commitment to inclusivity, earning trust and loyalty from customers who appreciated their efforts. As the years went by, Michael's legacy grew stronger. Documentaries, books, and films chronicled his journey, highlighting not only his athletic prowess, but also his contributions to society. One documentary titled Beyond the Game explored how Michael used his platform to drive change, featuring interviews with friends, colleagues, and beneficiaries of his initiatives. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, praising its ability to capture the essence of Michael's character, his humility, determination, and unwavering belief in fairness. Even those who initially doubted him came around to admire his vision. Critics who once accused him of seeking publicity were silenced by the tangible results of his work. Restaurants reported higher customer satisfaction ratings, schools saw reductions in bullying incidents, and communities grew closer as people embraced diversity. Michael proved that actions speak louder than words, and his actions spoke volumes. Looking back, Michael often reflected on the pivotal moment that set everything in motion. That night at the restaurant taught him an invaluable lesson. Challenges are opportunities in disguise. Instead of letting rejection define him, he chose to confront it head-on and transform it into something positive. In doing so, he demonstrated that greatness isn't measured solely by trophies or records. It's defined by the impact one leaves on the world. Friends and family marveled at how much Michael had grown since that day. They remembered the quiet anger he felt after being turned away, contrasted with the calm resolve he showed when planning his response. It was a testament to his ability to channel frustration into constructive action, a skill that made him not just a great athlete but a remarkable human being. Today, Michael's story serves as a beacon of hope for anyone facing adversity. It reminds us that no obstacle is insurmountable if approached with wisdom and purpose. Whether you're a student struggling with self-doubt, an employee fighting for fair treatment, or a community leader striving for change, Michael's journey shows that courage and determination can turn even the darkest moments into catalysts for progress. Perhaps the most enduring aspect of Michael's legacy is the way it transcends generations. Children growing up today may not remember his basketball career, but they'll learn about his fight for equality. Schools will teach them about the man who refused to accept injustice and instead worked tirelessly to create a better world. And someday these children will carry forward the values he instilled, values of fairness, respect, and inclusivity. In the end, Michael Jordan left behind more than just a record-breaking sports career. He left behind a blueprint for how to face adversity with grace and turn it into an opportunity to inspire change. His story proves that greatness isn't confined to the court. It extends to the lives we touch and the differences we make. By confronting biases, challenging stereotypes, and advocating for equality, Michael showed the world that true champions aren't just winners in their field, they're builders of a brighter future. And so, the legend of Michael Jordan lives on, not just as a basketball icon but as a symbol of resilience, leadership, and hope. His name will forever be associated with excellence, not because of the points he scored, but because of the lives he changed. Through his courage and determination, he taught us that greatness isn't about avoiding obstacles. It's about embracing them and transforming them into stepping stones toward progress.